broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
I love God. You don't love God? What's wrong with you?
Hey, I love God. You don't love God? What's wrong with you? Hey, I love him. I don't think I can live no other way.
Oh, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? If you don't know who this is Erica Campbell. I love God. I've never heard this song.
You gotta turn up for Jesus.
I mean, I need to. I want to turn up with the Father.
Yeah.
That's what this is about.
It's so weird when you play your song, your bass is going crazy. People are like, look at this hood. No, it's me and Jesus.
I love God. I love God. That's how I do it. Ladies and gentlemen, you have came to the Preachers of Detroit after show. We want to thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Lem Gonsalves, and you want to make sure that you subscribe to us, our YouTube page, youtube.com/AFTERBUZZ TV, and also make sure you subscribe to YouTube and SoundCloud. And when you can live tweet, actually you can live tweet us tonight because we're in Studio A, which is amazing. So if you want to live tweet us as you're watching the show with us, you can use the hashtag ABTV for AFTERBUZZ TV Preachers of Detroit. Again, I'm Lem Gonsalves, and you can find me on social media at The Poet Saint, and that's on Twitter and Instagram. And this young man who just gave me this song, and I'm so happy. Tell him who you are, sir.
I am Gary Thomas, and of course, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at I am Gary Thomas, and of course, IamGaryThomas.com.
There it is. So let's get into this episode.
Absolutely.
As we always do. Let's start off with the Shelbys, your favorite. So we saw a different side of them this particular time. A lot of times when we are introduced to the Shelbys, it's about their family because they're the ones that have the Shelby Five, the 5 kids, and we see a lot with that. We see, a lot of interaction with him and his wife as well. But this is a time where we saw some outreach that he did with actually one of his long-term members. She's 21 years old. His name is Christian, and she's been with the ministry for a long time. So she was 5, I believe.
Yes.
And she kind of strayed away a little bit. She had a child, has kind of come back. They're trying to get her back into the fold, but there's some issues that she's dealing with, and so what they want to do is try to get her into Job Corps. So we see throughout this episode them kind of meeting with her, and there's a time that she's lost a little bit, and they actually, literally lost. They have to go find her in the cold streets of Detroit. They end up finding her later, and then they end up, getting her over to Job Corps, and where she can, kind of start a new life. I thought it was good. What do you think?
Definitely. First of all, Christian was wearing an Eastern Michigan varsity jacket, and I am an EMU alumni, so shout out to all my Eagles.
Oh, word.
First of all, I do know the streets of Ypsilanti, but because I love to hate Don Shelby.
Yes, you do.
Pastor Shelby is not my favorite, but
Right.
I actually needed this episode.
Right.
I wanted to see some humanity in him and just see him outside of this character of a kind of a over the top father and over the top of everything. It was just cool to see him just love on somebody, and I think my favorite part was just like the celebration after she had signed up and everything, like them hugging, just loving on her, praying over her, and just that was my favorite part. But I love to see him and his wife being just humans and reaching out and trying to be passionate about about helping someone else.
Well, for me, I hope that they show more of this. I know this isn't the drama that a lot of times we look for as viewers, and we want to see them kind of feuding or kind of things happening that's not so good in their family life. But I think as ministers and as pastors and preachers, what they all are, they definitely should show them doing outreach, because as pastors, that's what they do, or that's what they should be doing. And so we've definitely seen it a lot with Bullock. We've seen it with a couple of the other pastors. We hadn't seen it, from my recollection, with the Shelbys yet, as far as outreach outside of their own walls or what have you. So I think it was good for them. I think it was good to see them, like you said, the human side, the humanity side of them, kind of wanting to, just caring for someone. Just, this is a soul, They want to just make sure that this person, and they have obviously some history because, again, she's been there since she was 5 years old.
Right.
And I can imagine how, I grew up in church, and I know our pastor, when we grew up, a lot of him was very in touch with, us as we were growing up and kind of about where we were. Yeah. Because of the investment that he's made, for so many years. So you want to make sure that anybody that has been with you that long, you want to make sure that they're doing what they need to do, and if they need help, that you can provide the help.
Yeah, and I love that they started this episode with, very scripture we're both very familiar with, Jeremiah 29:11.
Exactly. Exactly.
It was just so pertinent to this type of situation. God already knows the plan for you. He already knows that you can be great.
Absolutely.
It's about seeing out that plan and helping her steer back from whatever was going on, the trouble in her past, to get back to destiny. We needed that. We haven't seen that type of outreach with any of the pastors, even our favorites.
Right.
So to see that was great.
It was. So let's move on to two of the high-profile
evangelists.
Right. Actually, I want to switch over because we have a certain person calling in, and I think it'll be good for us to be talking about this now.
Okay.
But let's go on to Corletta and David Bullock. So Bishop Vaughn obviously is your girl.
That's my homie. Being Bishop like this.
And so we see some interaction with Bishop Vaughn and David Bullock, which I thought was good. I thought it was good that they seemed like they were homies. And I think a lot of it is because they do have a shared goal. And I do see with Corletta, even the show opening kind of was talking with this developer in Detroit that has come in from Peru, who wants to kind of put some money into restoring one of the landmarks there. And so she was meeting with them because her church would have kind of a footprint there. And so, of course, she calls on Bullock because he is the person that's always out, into the community and in dealing with, she was going to basically have at her church what was it called that she was going to have where all the people are coming? Thank you, town hall meeting. I was like, what is that called? So she was going to have a town hall meeting. She wanted Bullock to be there. She was going to invite some other people, that are part of the community. But basically, so this particular person can go ahead and discuss what his plans are, so everybody can know what's going on in the community. Obviously, Detroit, as we've seen so far, and if you hadn't seen, I'm sure you've heard, but it's very desolate there. There's very impoverished there. It's a lot, of a lot of bad things going on. Detroit doesn't have a good name in the sense, and we've met with Bullock before, we've met with Bishop Vaughn before, and we've actually talked about the city and some of the crises that are going on.
I was actually in Detroit in January, so I'm not too far off. Yeah.
Okay. So I think seeing this, and so we see we see Bishop Vaughn and we see Bullock kind of come together, and they're just they kikiing a little bit and like let's do this, and they're very excited about excited about this. They have this common goal, and I thought it was interesting because one of the things that Bullock said to Bishop Vaughn was, I want to run for city council. I ran before. I missed a seat by one. I got third place. I want to get that seat. I want to see if you can help me. And so she's like, absolutely. Like, no questions asked. I'm going to have you go, and it's going to happen. And so he's like, great. So we get to the actual town hall meeting. Seems like there's a lot of people there. And so the actual city council president is there, who's the person that he really wants to meet with, Ms. Jones. And so it gets time where the three of them were together, and all of a sudden you see Bishop Vaughn greet her, and she's like, "Oh, thank you so much for coming." Pastor Bullock is right there, and perfect opportunity to be like, "Oh, this is David Bullock," and da 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 da, and she immediately bypasses him, and then so he's like, "Okay," so he walks with her, and then she proceeds to introduce to everybody, and Bullock is standing right there, and she immediately says, okay, now we're gonna go into the sanctuary and start the meeting. And so he's just like, he's tripping. He's like, what is going on?
I think it was a little confusing. I guess I watched it, but I was just like kind of not in on the loop of it, and I would probably want to say that her reasoning may have been that she knew that their introduction would be a little more time consuming, because they need a very formal introduction. And he has, things that he wants to say and do. So it wouldn't be just like a, hello, nice to meet you. It would be more of an in-depth conversation. So maybe in the interest of time, she was just, she was trying to. Yeah, but she probably didn't handle it that well. But in the interest of time, that's probably what she did.
Well, when she did her one-on-one in the camera, she doing her one-on-one with the camera, she did say that she thought it was poor timing. And for, again, this is a big event, like you said, and I didn't think about about it that way until you said that. This will be a more in-depth introduction.
Right.
Brenda Jones is actually the name of the city council president, and she would want to be like, okay, he wants to run for a seat, and then he can then take over the conversation, tell her about, and that's going to take some time.
What he's going to do,
exactly.
What he wants to do.
Exactly. And so maybe she didn't feel like that was the right timing, and it could have been handled, take back. I think the reason why what really made him upset, he was already upset that he didn't get the introduction right away, but he still went into the meeting, but then she left. After she gave her speech, she left. So now there was no way for him to be introduced.
Right.
So then he's upset, and then he leaves. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what really ticked him off, because now she's gone. It's not like I can be introduced afterwards because she's already going to be gone. I've lost my opportunity, and then he basically says that she's a liar.
I thought he went straight for the jugular on that. These pastors be lying.
They be lying.
But I think that it was a little hard to believe that he didn't already know her. As active as he is, and since he's ran before, I was kind of surprised. Like you guys don't already know each other or have some type of formality at this point, because you're so involved in the community. I would think that just kind of like with Hollywood, a lot of people already know each other based on what you do.
Right.
It's not unusual to see someone at the same place.
Sure.
Especially like us with media, we see all the same media.
Right.
So him being active in the community, with politics, not just dabbling as but very active. I thought they would have known each other by now. So needing this introduction was a surprise to me.
Well, I mean, it also could be. Bullock is involved in the community, but I think getting into city council, I think that's a separate entity.
Well, he's ran before,
Well, he's ran, but also, and again, I'm not a politics person by any means, but it could be a situation where he may have not been able to get a hold of them. Not to say that he's never even, met her or what have you. Could have possibly met her before, but I think the thing was he wanted Bishop Vaughn to co-sign for him.
Yeah.
His thing was, look, I came close, I didn't make it, I really want that seat. So I need you to co-sign for me, so that way she knows her directly from that. You know what I'm saying? He can give her the impression that he is for the city, he is for the community, he is for Detroit, which is what she would want to hear, and therefore can have the in.
Yeah. So I can see that, of course.
So and obviously too, we know Bullock he kind of does what he wants to do. He kind of gets in there. So he's not shy. Like he's not that type of person that like, oh, I don't know if I can talk to this person. Like he's very into what he's doing. And so I think it's important that you know what? He's actually on the line. He can speak for himself. Yeah. Pastor David Bullock, are you there with us?
I'm on the line. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's been a great Resurrection Day. And,
yes.
Amen.
Just excited about Preachers of Detroit.
Oh, yes.
I can't wait to talk to the AFTERBUZZ TV crew about the latest and the greatest.
Yes. Well, it's funny. Your ears must burn. First of all, I want you to introduce you to Gary Thomas. He's co-hosting with me.
How's it going, Pastor Bullock?
Going great.
And we were actually just discussing, because we knew when you were going to call in, so we were actually in the thick of the scene when you were there with Bishop Vaughn in the town hall meeting and everything that went down with Brenda Jones and the kind of diss that happened and where you didn't get to meet her. And we were just kind of commenting on that and kind of how it portrayed on television. But I would definitely, please, sir, give me your impression about what happened and how that kind of all went down.
Well, look, number one, let me say Bishop Vaughn typically keeps her word. Mm-hmm. But in this particular case, she lied to me. And the reason why it was so frustrating and disappointing was because I didn't need her to introduce me to Brenda Jones in the first place.
Okay.
I could introduce myself to Brenda Jones.
Okay.
But I figured since it was her turf, her church, the town hall meeting that she organized, had already given her information for the developer to make sure the development actually benefited people who live in the city of Detroit. Mm-hmm. And so then she suggested to me that she would. She offered. She said, hey, I'm going to introduce you. I'm going to make an introduction to Brenda Jones and let Brenda Jones know that I know you, that we have a relationship, mm-hmm. And that you really are somebody that she needs to pay attention to and seek counsel with. And so I said, okay, if you're offering that, that's fine. I'll receive that. Mm-hmm. So I thought that it was just really out of character for her to invite me to a meeting,
right,
make the offer of having a special introduction, and then at the last minute, without saying anything to me, not deliver. And so uncharacteristic of the bishop, but nonetheless, the bishop failed in that moment.
So one of the things that we were discussing, just trying to, play devil's advocate, if we can use that term, if obviously it was what we saw, it looked like it was a lot going on. We see Brenda Jones kind of come in and, she's kind of taking her around, and then this meeting has to start. And it seemed like, according to, obviously there's editing and stuff that happens, but it appeared there was 2 different times, according to what we saw on the show, that she could have introduced you. Now, we were thinking, was it a situation because in the introduction she would have to give to you, to Miss Jones, it was going to be more in-depth? And maybe there was a lack of time in the situation because of the meeting that was taking place. Do you think that could have been a factor?
Not at all, because there were a couple of different moments. There was the moment when Council President Brenda Jones comes in. She could have made the introduction. There was a moment in the room where she actually introduces Brenda Jones to Bishop Langston, who really has no political role, has no social significance in the city of Detroit, outside of his church. So she introduces him.
Tell us the truth,
Brenda Jones, to this guy, right? And then there's the meeting. So the town hall meeting, and not much of that made it onto the show, but she could have done it there. I think there were a number of opportunities for her to keep her word. Really don't know why she faltered. And this is the context. Brenda Jones knows who I am. Okay.
She does.
And she definitely. You can't live in Detroit and not know who I am.
We did discuss this.
You can't be involved in politics and not know me. But what was supposed to happen is that Bishop Vaughn was supposed to basically vouch for me, right? So this was supposed to be Bishop Vaughn saying, you may already know Bullock, but maybe you don't know my relationship with him. Maybe you don't know, that, I'm his spiritual mother, that I support his work, and maybe you don't know how tight we are. So the snub was really Bishop Vaughn not willing to connect or associate herself with me that night. That was the snub.
Gotcha.
It's bigger than an introduction. And so, it was really frustrating and disappointing, because one would want to think that there would be no reason for her to lie, and why would she be afraid to do that at her own event?
When she already promised that she would.
When she already promised that she would, and runs around telling people, she's my mother, I'm her son, that's my son. So come on. That's not mama behavior.
She definitely speaks very highly of you. When we met her, she had nothing but good things to say about you and your ministry.
Indeed. So you can imagine how disappointing and interesting it was for her to fail to give me the third-party validation in that moment. And, so folks have to keep watching to see how that resolves itself. But it definitely was a snub.
Definitely was a snub.
And she definitely intended to snub me.
How many times are you going to use snub? I think we ran out of our snubs.
Wait a minute. I don't want to call it, because Bishop Vaughn is a homie for me, and I don't want to say she intentionally did it.
Well,
I don't want to believe it.
I think it's like, and Pastor Bullock, we've actually, she's come to the studio. I don't know if you know or not, but we actually, just like we did a one-on-one with you, we also did a one-on-one with Bishop Vaughn. And like
right, I heard about that. Yeah,
Gary was saying that she did have some high things to say about you, and it was just, and I think it's interesting too, because in looking at before, I had never seen, and obviously, we only see what they show on television, but I had never seen you guys had such a great interaction. And when you came to her church and you were talking to her about the event, she was very adamant, like almost like why would you even ask? Like that's a no-brainer. I'm definitely going to and do whatever you need me to do, you know what I'm saying, for this event and for your ministry and what you're trying to do in the city, because it sounded like you guys both had common goals as far as like outreach and making sure the city is run well. So I was, that's why I was like, well, maybe it wasn't a snub, maybe it was something else we didn't see. But according to your account, Pastor Bullock, you're saying it definitely was a snub without shadow of a doubt.
Definitely. Like when you see me leave, I'm seriously like I'm ready to go.
Right.
I don't even know why she invited me, because we did have that conversation in her office. She did insist that I come to this meeting.
Right.
She did act like she wanted input, because development is something that maybe I have more of a background in terms of the community benefit agreement and some of the other things that need to happen. But she insisted that I come. So why insist that I come and then not deliver? Know, but. So I'm going to have to just put my vote on the side of being snubbed, and I still love the bishop and appreciate her bishopdom, but she snubbed me.
I wanted to also, I did see there was a scene that you talked to Bishop Langston. You met him at the gym that he had just built, it looked like, and you guys were talking, and you guys are very, very, very nice and cordial. I know that there's been some, for lack of a better term, there's been some beef between you two. There was a couple of things that, meetings that you guys had where you had disagreements or what have you. At this point in time in the show where it's at, have you guys made up? Because it sounded like you guys were like on one accord, basically.
Well, there was a scene in an earlier episode where I went to his church. He invited me back. We had a second conversation, and we did kind of make up. We seen eye to eye. I think there's mutual respect. Now, I've always respected him.
Okay.
I think initially he didn't respect me.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I put the smack down, he had to back down. But after that,
yes.
But after that, we were able to mutually respect each other. I went to his the convocation or confirmation when he became a bishop.
Right.
And so when you see me at the gym, I'm at the church. He just bought a new church, an old Catholic plant in Detroit. It's marvelous. He's doing a great job. And I went over there to talk to him, and then to encourage him to come to the meeting that Bishop Vaughn was having, because he wants to get more politically involved and politically engaged.
Okay.
So we have made up. I mean, I call him my big brother.
Okay.
Big brother Clarence, big brother Bishop. So we cool right now.
Awesome.
It just definitely seems like you all's interaction sometimes seems a little coerced. It doesn't seem very natural sometimes.
Well, it may not be supernatural, just because I think there still is a little tension there. But definitely we are more familiar than we were. After that one-on-one where I get up and walk out, there was some tension. I think we've resolved that tension. But we're still new friends, right? And so it's going to take time for us to develop a certain level of camaraderie and comfortability.
Right.
But I do think there's at least mutual respect there.
Okay. I have a question for you concerning one of the other cast members. We're actually meeting with him. We're doing a one-on-one with him next week, and that's your friend that you invited over to do the talk where you pass out the condoms. And
you knew that was coming. I don't know why this shouldn't even be a surprise. I was waiting on you to say it, because I'm like, I'm going to say it because I know we're meeting with him Tuesday, so I need to know what happened.
So, I mean, I know that we had talked to you, and it kind of came up a little bit, but not in any depth. And I'm sure he's going to have his point of view in saying that. But the thing is, with that whole scene, first of all, I mean, we haven't really seen, and I don't know if you have anything to do with the editing. I know that he pastors a church here in L.A. He's not in Detroit currently, and we haven't seen a lot of him. But it was literally just that scene, and then like the first scene, kind of at the beginning. Was it what it was, what we saw on television, as far as, because I will say, and this is an interesting part, when we talked to Bishop Vaughn, she very much was on your side regarding what happened, because she said this was your church. This is your church. You basically handle things the way you handle in your church. And so it looked like, you had cut them off, and it looked like, there was some other things that went on. But was it what we saw, or was there some editing that kind of made it more of a kind of an event that made it seem like something that was negative?
Well, look, I mean, it was what you saw. Of course, there's always editing, because you can't fit everything in.
Sure.
But this is what happens. One is my church. Let me just say that. It's my church.
Right.
I'm the pastor of the church.
Right.
Pastor Tim has a church in L.A. He does pop-up church in Detroit. I don't know what his membership is. I heard it wasn't that big. But that's fine. I mean, everybody's ministry is different. So he's coming to my church
tonight.
I invited him to come, and I asked him to give his message about abstinence. right? So I did not invite him to set him up. Now, I did tell him, no, you have 30 minutes because I want you to do a lecture, and then we're going to go into a full-blown service.
Gotcha.
Okay, so we were having like a Black Lives Matter service. I wanted him to do a lecture, and then we had another speaker come.
Gotcha.
So basically, when you see me get up, he's going over time. He's like 15 minutes over.
Oh, really?
And I have to, and so it's time for the next speaker. It's time for the next service to start, and people are coming in for that service. So I basically have to get up and move him out the way, and still have a little question and answer period, and then still do what I think is right because his message is great. But Pastor Tim gives that message to 16 to 20-year-olds,
right.
14 to 18-year-olds. So the question is, what is your message to that mother who's divorced, got 2 kids, and is dating?
Right.
What's your message to that 40-year-old brother or that 30-year-old, guy who is married or maybe, divorced or not married, looking to get married? I mean, so the message that you give in the high school and the middle school is one thing, but the reality is that people are having sex, and you can't talk like people aren't.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure that before they left my church, they were clear that, hey, look, I support Pastor Tim's message, but if you're gonna jump out of a plane, don't not have a parachute because Pastor Tim said don't have one.
Right.
Because if you're gonna have sex, at least have it safely.
Right.
And don't because I don't want people to think either I'm going to be abstinent, and if I'm not going to be abstinent, then I don't need anything.
Right.
Because I think that's the wrong message. And I think Pastor Tim really doesn't have an answer for grown folks who are having sex. He really doesn't have a message that meets the reality of that. And then, of course, he's a 50-year-old virgin.
Right.
I don't even know if he can relate.
I was
He
just
never
gonna
had
say
sex.
that. He's not. His message is never going to be relatable because he's never lived that life.
Exactly.
What do you?
But I wasn't trying to bash him or set him up. It was really just a time constraint, time crunch.
Right.
I wanted to make sure people had a holistic message.
Got it.
Now, I'm definitely in agreement with you because I think that your message, your ministry is powerful because you get people to come places, and you're not going to always get people in, to come to the health center, but you got them in the church. So that was the first step.
Right.
But what do you think about the people who are, saying that you are misconstruing ministry or you're kind of doing the wrong things? Not that I'm in disagreement with you because I'm not in disagreement with you.
Right.
But there are, our viewers and there are people who say that.
I think everybody's entitled to their opinion, right? But at the end of the day, I also think that people who don't do ministry don't know what doing ministry is. And we have this, this imagined idea of what ministry is like. Look, when you do ministry, you get down and dirty. If somebody's sick and you're ministering to them, then you minister to them while they're sick.
Right.
So if somebody is drug addicted and you're ministering to them in the crack house.
Right.
Or right outside of it, or at the rehab center, which means you have to deal with the addiction. You can't pray that off of them. You got to deal with that.
Right.
If you're ministering to someone who's been abused, or someone who, say, is having illicit sexual relationships with multiple people, and they're not protecting themselves, you have to deal with people where they are.
Right.
And so a lot of people think I could just give you a word or quote the Bible and fix it. But that's not how ministry works. You have to actually deal with what people are doing and thinking. And that means you have to give them practical steps to move from where they are to where they need to be. And so I just think, people don't get what I'm doing, that's fine. But ask anybody who we minister to, do they understand?
Right.
They'll tell you yes.
Right. Well, Pastor Bullock, I appreciate you joining us. I always think of your insight. Like I said, we've had you on the show before on our one-on-one status. I'm glad that you're part of the episode. I'm looking forward to seeing if you go on another date. I'm just saying that's what I'm looking for. I don't know if it's going to happen, but that was really blessed my heart when you went on that date.
I am not. I shut her down since she got out that car.
And that young lady, she did not know what she was getting into. I thought that was great. So I don't know what's going to happen, but if there's a season 2, we need to see that again because that was amazing. But before you leave us, Pastor Bullock, please tell the viewers and everybody where they can find you on social media and any other platforms that you have.
Look, definitely on Twitter, D.Alexander.B. Go to the website, davidalexanderbullock.com. Also on Instagram at D.Alexander.B. I do have a Facebook page as well, David Alexander Bullock. You can find me at any of those social media locations. And if there's a season 2, there definitely has to be a date scene.
Yes.
Spare me, guys.
I'm so excited. Don't worry about Gary. I'm with you.
He just went to town on her. I mean, I wasn't hopeful for her at all.
I'm just saying. I thought it was great. So anyway, Pastor Bullock, again, happy Easter. Thank you so much for joining us, taking time in your busy schedule, and we'll definitely have her on the show again if that's all right with you.
Thank you. Love to.
All right, man. Take it easy. All right. So we got it. I mean, I think it was interesting going back to, when you're talking about Pastor Tim, because the way they edited it just seemed like he just cut him off. But it was interesting to see that he was like, I gave him 30 minutes. He was at 45 and still talking. And there was another event that was going on, and his thing was he wanted to make sure that people had all the information.
Well, I mean, everybody who saw me raise my praise, and because it was because me and Patrick, when we discussed that show, we were just going at it about that because I did not disagree with Pastor Bullock. I think that you cannot get a person to salvation without going through the journey, the steps. You can't expect them to be here and go way over here without taking them through those steps. So it's a sense of let's start where you're at. That's where you're talking about it. People who are not in ministry don't understand that it's taking those steps. And I was okay with saying that and saying that he was able to get some of these people into the church who never stepped foot into a health center and may never step foot into another church. But being relatable and getting them there was positive. And he's just saying, let's shape this whole message so it fits the person that it is right here. Because like he said, people have already made that mistake, and Pastor Tim has a message that is more for a generation that is earlier on in their growing in their adolescence. That's not preaching to someone who now is transitioning into celibacy. That's different.
That is a different situation. But we're going to talk to him this week, so make sure you viewers, when we do that interview, we'll let you know, and you can tune in and kind of get Pastor Tim's side of the story and what he's about. Before we close, I do want to talk about evangelist Dorinda Clark Cole, and she got some airtime this particular episode. We didn't see her the last episode.
Wait. I don't know what it is. I've seen a couple magazine covers. She has some good skin, or her makeup artist at the bottom. They make her look very, very youthful.
Oh yeah.
They make her look amazing. She's always looks amazing. It's like crazy because she's an older woman. Not super old or anything, but she's definitely an older woman. It's just like, wow, you look amazing. No. God has been good to you. Bless all of that youth. Black don't crack, I guess.
Hey, there it is.
That's what they say.
I've seen her live, and she does. I mean, she does. Her makeup is always flawless.
She's great. She looks great all the time.
Always looks good. So, she definitely kind of went in and kind of brought something up that a lot of people, I think, are taboo in a lot of some of your churches, because when you deal with something like, for instance, depression, and that's something that you deal with, it's almost like you suppress that, because if you say, I'm depressed, then, okay, well, you're not holy, or you're not believing God, or things of that nature. So I thought it was good that she brought this out and kind of talked about it. There was a scene where she was talking to her sister, who was also one of the Clark sisters, who does her booking, and she was mentioning that it was kind of coming back, something that she obviously has dealt with before, and now it's kind of coming back and rearing its head, if I could say that. And she was basically saying that she wants to get some help with that. And so she ended up her sister ended up telling her about the therapist to go see, who she did. And I thought it was good, and you could tell she was a Christian therapist, because she just knew all the lingo, and she knew about church, and she knew about and she talked about how she was traveling and things of that nature, and she could relate, the therapist could. But I thought it was good because and it was interesting too that when she kind of did the exercise where she had to close her eyes and she said, "She's with you," and she said, "I see my mom." And for those who don't know, Dorinda Clark is part of the Clark sisters, and their mom was Maddie Moss Clark, who was instrumental in the gospel music industry, super old school. I remember seeing her years ago when she was still alive. She directed this mass choir at this Kojic convention that I went to a long time ago, but very instrumental. She obviously trained up her girls, and the Clark sisters were because of their mother. She definitely instilled that. So it was interesting that she kind of saw her mother and how her mother would be like, you need to slow down, because I think as someone, when you have a legacy like that, you want to make sure you maintain that legacy. You want to make sure that you continue to push forward and continue to be the best and continue to, show the people that, you got it. And I think sometimes in those cases, you can kind of do too much, and then your body suffers, or your health suffers, or your mind suffers, and you're not thinking about yourself. You're not taking care of yourself. You're just thinking about everybody else and not yourself. What do you think about that?
I think that Dorinda saved some lives with this transparency. She made a comment. The whole thing is faith without works is dead.
Right.
So she made a comment that God wants me to be whole.
Right.
And when we deal with the spirit of depression, spirit of addiction, spirit of suicide, all these different spirits, those are holes in our spirit that the enemy is going to try to attack. So if we don't address them and start trying to make it, put a facade on and suppress them, we're never going to save ourselves or anyone around us. We're going to continue to be destructive and continue to walk on a destructive path. And it's not a path of faith. It's not a path of righteousness.
Right.
So until we stop doing all of these things that are so passe in the church, and we can't say this, we can't do this, you're not praying enough, you just need a word. No. You need to realign yourself with the Spirit and let Him tell you what you need to do to get yourself together. Now, if He's telling her to slow down, she needs to slow down.
Right. That's
how she needs to fill herself up. And in being an evangelist, she's constantly giving.
Sure.
So that involves new prayer and new levels of prayer to be filled back up, to be able to give more in her ministry.
And it was, I think, a good point for the therapist that she said, you can't give when you're empty.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of times, and I know, I make reference to my father a lot on these shows because he was a pastor as well. And he's been so for several years. And I always would hear him say that he needs to go and get fed himself.
Exactly.
He's a pastor, him and my mom, they always give and give, but they need to go to these conferences or just take vacation. And they make sure they take a vacation at least once or twice a year because they need to get that rest. And they need to be filled, and they need to go to their pastor and get, spiritual filled and receive the word for them so that they can impart into their members.
And that's another thing about congregations. How often do you pray for your pastor? How often do you pray for your first lady, your apostles in your church? They are human just like you, and they're constantly feeding you. You have to keep them in mind when you're saying your prayers too, so they can come back and give you more and keep helping you grow.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought it was good for her to open up like that, and to see, because I think in seeing again someone of that, when you're at that level, you're like, oh no, they got it all together, or they don't deal with anything, and they're so spiritual and they're so holy. And
what was great about it, she said she's dealt with it before, so it's not a new occurrence.
Right.
So she is, she's battling it, she's kicking its butt, but it tends to rear its ugly head. But she comes back to the Spirit and says, I'm gonna fight this. I'm not gonna let it, beat me.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think at this point in time, let's get into predictions. Let's do that.
And now, your AFTERBUZZ TV predictions.
I feel like we're gonna, like a haunted house or something every time. All right, so we saw the previews for next week. I'm excited because I think it's going to be some dramatic moments. Let's just put it like that. I'm interested to see about Dorinda's daughter and kind of the talk with the Shelby girls and kind of how that's going to go. What are your predictions going forward?
We're going to see Bishop and Pastor hash it out about this whole snubbing, so that's going to be interesting. And I really don't, I'm not like, I already know that they're okay with each other. Like, so I'm not like, I just want to see the actual heat of the moment.
Right.
I need a little bit of a drama because the last 2 episodes have been a lot more calm and a little bit different. Not a whole lot to thrive on, which is different. And I'm interested in seeing the Shelbys go, try to defend themselves, and they're going to get turned up a little bit because they're defending this idea that they have in their mind. So I'm not surprised that Dorinda's daughter, her husband's not safe either.
Okay. I was gonna mention that, but I think I'm curious to see how that folds out because, like she said, he's not saved, and you know, just the whole. I mean, she's using this as a case in point for the Shelby girls, and I'm just going to be interested to see how they feel about that because, of course, you know, her mom is, you know, Dorinda Clark. And how dare, you know, she be affiliated and she works with her mother. It's not like she's just out there doing her thing. She actually is involved with her mother and what her mother does and, you know, helps her mother. And I'm sure probably works with her mother and travels with her mother. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, you know, especially because of how their feelings, we know how they feel about, you know, men and how they should be subject and all that kind of stuff. Did you notice, it was really quick, but I saw Gil helping set up. I don't know if you saw that, but yeah, I saw Gil.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I saw when they were setting up. Like, I think it was right when it was after, what was her name, Brenda Jones. She had left, and they kind of started setting up for like question and answer, and they were kind of moving tables around. Gil was helping with that.
Gil's back, man.
And they didn't make reference to him, but I saw him like, that's Gil. That's Gil. So
Gil has
he's
came a
kind
long
of,
way.
you know, doing his thing. And I'm curious to see, you know, of course, we're going to see more before the season ends, you know, kind of the resolution between them two and kind of how that's going to go. But
yes.
We saw in the last episode that he's there.
Yeah.
He's there. And I'm just wondering if there's going to be anything else, you know, alongside of that. But I think he's going to stay there and kind of see how that develops. But it'll be interesting to see, like I said, I'm interested to see how the resolution happens between Bullock and with Bishop Vaughn and kind of how they hash that out. Of course, he's going to tell her how, you know, he feels, and they're both very opinionated, very headstrong, so it'll be an interesting situation.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I agree.
We'll have to tune in. But again, that was our show for today. We want to thank you for tuning in. Also, happy Easter. Happy Resurrection
Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say,
Saints.
you know, can I say that? I was going to say
Saints calling out
both.
Easter.
Happy Easter, happy Resurrection Sunday, all of that. I put Happy Resurrection Sunday on my Facebook, just so you know. I've been your host, Lem Gonsalves. You can find me on social media at The Poet Saint, and that's on Twitter and Instagram. Where can they find you, sir?
I am Gary Thomas on Instagram and Twitter, and I am GaryThomas.com.
Word. So there it is. Make sure you tune in next week, and we'll see you then.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.